it. Okay, got it. All right, thank you. So we'll call this meeting to order, the Infrastructure Committee on February 2nd, 2022. So let's do a roll call. I'm here, Knut.
Terry's here.
Dominic is here.
And Jim Bray is absent at this point. And we do have public present. Adoption of the agenda. So I'm going to review the minutes from the last meeting as of November 18th. Then we have public comment, old business, which is primarily monthly updates, review of the financial data to be presented. Okay, Diane is joining right now. And then we have new business. As the treasurer, I would, well, we can review it here, but we need to present it to the board and recommendation to increase the reserve funds for the airport for major projects. And then I think, Terry, you were going to do the presentation for public meeting or any review comments there might be. And then we can do a review of hangar leases. So Jeff did a study, and then if we get into details, I'll have to recuse myself as an employee of Foothills Flight Center, and legal recommends I leave the meeting if that comes up in this meeting. So that's it. Any changes to the agenda?
I think it looks good.
Okay. So I'd like to move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Aye.
And aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let me share the minutes. Let's see, there we go. So last we had a infrastructure meeting was on November 18th, which was before everybody went on holiday. Just to summarize, I don't know, is this too small? Do I need to zoom in? I can.
No, that's good.
There we go.
Yeah, well, that works too.
So Phil informed us that he knew our product, and I think he brought a sample to the office that he said potentially the streets could be completely slurry sealed for about 300,000 with this particular product. I don't think we have done anything yet or recommend anything to the board yet. So I just want to, that was the thing that was pointed out there. Old business committee member update. So Burl has resigned as both president and member of the committee, and Kevin when he left the airport manager position. And thank you to Terry and Dominic for joining the committee here. And we currently only have Jim Bray in addition. So if anybody wants to become very active, we cannot have any more board members. We can certainly have more members that are residents in the district. And then we reviewed, actually that was the initial review of your data and model, financial model, Terry, that we did. And then we also had a discussion about the fuel system replacement and the potential of a used tank at the harbor or Port of Oakland. So I think that was what we comments on the minutes.
No comments. Can you scroll down to the new business again?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any comments. It looks good.
Okay, then I would like to move that we approve the minutes from November 18th.
Second.
Aye.
And aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to public comments. Anybody have any input or public comments?
Bill, I got to apologize. I was going to get a hold of Rich with the tanks today.
Mm-hmm.
Things just didn't work out as well as I'd hoped.
Okay.
During the meeting here, I may give him a quick call and see if I can get any updates. I wanted to ask Dominic, though, if he had heard anything from him.
After I had he had sent over the pictures of the fuel tanks. He has not gone back to me since. He said that he was going to talk more about the costs that would be connected with that, but I haven't heard from him since he sent that initial email.
Okay, well, probably here in just a second, I'm gonna give him a call. And that way I can update it, any information I get on the call.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That brings any other public comments? Does not appear to be the case. Thank you, Phil. We'll move on to old business. The first one is actually one that Jim Bray was going to follow up with, so I think we can move on quickly here. We had talked about that the district or the board or the committee should have some way of give monthly updates about and how to distribute that and what was to be the best format. So I don't think we've made any progress in this area since last time. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas, suggestions, or way to make progress on this, or if we should table it until Jim is back.
Yeah, unless Dominic has something, I don't have something, so I would suggest we table it till next time.
I agree. We should table it, get everyone involved.
Okay. All right, that brings us to one of the big items for this meeting, which is financials for fuel system replacement. And as Phil, he already had a lead into this, we are looking at other options for used tanks, but let me present one thing that I've been working on a little bit. So it's a fuel system replacement study. So let me try and share that. Let's see, there we go. And let me zoom in a little bit. So I've been trying to break it down because certain items are independent about what kind of fuel system we're going to get. So we have one item that is removal on the existing underground storage tank. And the only data we have received so far is from the CNS engineering study. And I have the data here for the ports and canopy solution. I want to add data for the other ones, but I think this one is going to be pretty much independent about what system we get. In one exception, if we find a new location for the fuel system, then we don't need a temporary fueling system while the old tank is dug out of the ground. So the data here, I think, is kind of rough estimates from CNS, because to me, it looks like the data is pretty, that both material and labor is the same for these items. But anyway, that's probably something we can get more details on there. The next one is the preparation for the AST system, right? So wherever we decide on the location, we need the concrete pad for the tank itself. We need the concrete pad for the truck and for refill. And if it's one special item that hasn't really been, it's been the elephant in the room, what happens to the water well if we decide to place the tank closer to the hangars over there? So, and can we still have that running at that point? That might become an issue. Then there's the actual installation of the above ground storage tank. And again, here the cost is going to depend on what kind of tank. So I know, Terry, you've been looking at proposals from, what was the name of the company?
Mascot Equipment Company.
Yes, about a completely integrated system. So if we get a totally integrated system with a dispenser, then we don't need fuel piping or any piping above ground between the tank and the dispenser. So that's one thing. If we decide on a new location for the tank, then we need to have new electrical service. We need to have site lighting, pole and fixtures if we place it down around the tie down area, if that becomes an option. So some of these will only apply depending on what kind of system that we are going to replace it with. And that's where I hope from this fuel replacement study that we can have side-by-side comparison about whatever cost is the same and what would be unique for each one of these installations here. So the tank that we included on installation is whatever CNS suggested, but that's already what's more than what you have for an integrated tank.
Yeah, significantly more.
They include the card reader, which I actually include. So if that's part of that system, that makes up about 15 to 20,000 of that amount. Then we have the actual activation of the new tank. I don't know what the soak test is, but that was mentioned by CNS. And then we have all the application, the commissioning, the testing, the training, and the permits that we need to get in there. Then I want to do a comparison about the studies. So if we get a brand new tank, we expect the liability and environmental insurance cost is going to be a lot less than what they are today for the underground storage tank. That's the one that 1 year went up by 50% as the age of the tank went up. And we're going to have some savings too, because some of these inspections we have today are due to it being an underground storage tank, and they will go away completely. So we don't think we need any hazmat inspections. We're certainly going to need the Air Resource Board inspections. We can likely get rid of the designated operator inspections, which is a FORTA test coming once a month, and some of the permits would likely go away as well. There's the point of sale system. That could probably be completely independent, because it seems like Dominic and I are running into more and more problems keeping the current fuel master system operating, and I can see Dominic nodding. So every time we try to update prices, a download transaction, it seems to be a half-day job just to get connected to the fuel master system.
And point out that this system, didn't Epic Fuel says nobody uses this anymore? We're the only ones in.
So when the company came out, this was BZ. They came out to fix the tank last time and put all the seals. The guy made a comment about how they have a warehouse full of all the few master pedestals, and you guys are probably the last one, at least in this area, if not the entire state, that uses the current fuel master pedestal that we have. So right. it is old, but
nobody uses dial-up modems on their fuel.
No, nobody uses dial-up modems anymore.
But anyway, either way, depending on what system we choose and whether we choose QT Part or Fuel Master's new system, we'll have the cost of breaking down what are the annual fees and transaction fees that they charge us. So by 2026, nobody will support magnetic card strips anymore. So that means we need a system that has to go over to smart chips at that point, at least. And we think we already now have the risk ourselves of fraudulent charges, because that's what the bank requires us to use the chip by now. Then we have contingencies. I know this is one of the reasons it went really high for the CNS engineering plan. But some of these costs, we certainly need some engineering for installing the new fuel tank. And El Dorado County requires an external contractor to do the plan for removal of the underground storage tank. They have a checklist. So actually we received a document from the county about what's required for removing the underground tank. If we get a tank that's more than 10,000 gallon, we'll need an SPCC plan. I don't know how much it costs to develop that. That's the, I forgot what the acronym is.
SWIPA.
Okay. So that's in case of spills and things like that, water, I think is what it comes out to. And then do we need any kind of environmental monitoring of the system? Currently we have leak detection associated with the underground storage tank, would we need something similar for an above ground storage tank? So those are some of the questions I don't have numbers for yet. And the other numbers, as I said, are taken directly out of the CNS engineering report, and the accuracy of those I cannot guarantee for it. See, some of them are pretty back of the envelope kind of numbers, seem how round they are, but it certainly gave us an idea about what areas and how we can break down the cost and better present it to the board about what the cost of the fuel system is. So,
Can you
I would
do
like to-
I'm sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
no, I was just going to open it up and ask for if this is a useful comparison between the solution. It sounds like we're going to get a different kind of tank, right? So if we
Yeah.
get an external use tank, then I think what we have to be careful about is it'll probably require piping, and it would require that we research what is the insurance environmental cost going to be for a used tank, if that's something that they look at. And
Would you be able to populate the operation costs?
yes, and I was planning on doing that. So one of my suggestions was, and actually I talked to our legal counsel, Dave Becker, we can establish an ad hoc committee, which of course cannot have a quorum of board members, so maximum 2 board members, but people that focus on one specific task, and it can become an ad hoc committee, and does not have the overhead of a standing committee meeting, and it can work faster, and then it'll have to report back to this committee and or the board, and it will have to be dissolved as soon as that task has been completed. So that would be one of my suggestions for making faster progress on this fuel system replacement. So we don't have to wait for a bi-weekly I&F meeting or board meeting for start collecting the data. Of course, we can't make any decisions on it. So that's probably a suggestion for the I&F committee, is that we create an ad hoc committee for this, and probably also for the lease study that we need, so I can get out of that one.
I do agree. I think we need those committees for both the lease and the fuel tanks.
And I think I would limit it at that for right now. And
Yeah.
I would like to ask people, I would like to be part of the fuel one. And of course, we'll be interested in anybody that can contribute to that as well.
So that would be for the fuel ad hoc would be, I'd like, of course, continue to be part of that. So,
Yeah.
So
So
we
that
can't
would
have
certainly no
can't have any more
member.
board members.
Right. So I would like to propose that we go ahead on that, and we can draw on Phil or other with expertise in this area about what the cost can be, right? So we actually have real cost, and sometimes I think we kind of hand wave at what the cost will be without really knowing. So.
Phil, would you be able to be part of the committee? Ad hoc?
Yeah, I can, I'll do that. I just got off the phone with Rich from Hunt Brothers, and I didn't want to interrupt, but they have made an offer on those tanks down in Modesto, I think it is, and they're waiting to hear from the current owner. So we won't talk about that for a little bit, but I'm guessing that tank, that 15,000 gallon, it's a fire guard tank, I think is what he told me. I'm just going to guess, and this is just a number I'm pulling out of my shoe, around $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot less expensive to move because it isn't heavy. It's a dual steel wall versus the concrete exterior. On the SWIPA plan, I have an ex-employee that did most of them for the state of California, and I may be able to coach him into helping us out with a little bit of the SWIPA stuff.
Okay.
And he still works for the state of California.
All right.
He might do it on the side as, you know, at a pretty low cost for us. And
That sounds good.
he wrote most of the rules for the state of California.
All right.
One of the other things well, two other things. One is they have on your synopsis here, it's about an $87,000 cost to remove the old tank.
Yeah,
Remember, Rich has someone willing to take that old tank at zero cost and maybe help us out with craning it out of the hole. So that may reduce that cost substantially.
right. I still feel I can share that, right? So El Dorado County has a fairly detailed checklist on how they require us to do that, so.
Well, this is all this guy does. This is what he does.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay,
sure he's familiar with it. And one of the other things that I was just as line 34 here,
uh-huh,
fuel piping, the 3-inch stainless steel Schedule 10.
mm-hmm,
Schedule 10 pipe is very, very thin. I mean, it's, think of EMT, you know, that very thin electrical conduit, and Schedule 10's about that thick.
okay.
No, I would think I'd rather use black iron and a Schedule
Okay.
or a Schedule 80 pipe rather than normal plumbing pipe, you know, is Schedule 40.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to Schedule 10, that's 1/4 of the thickness of a regular household plumbing pipe.
It seems the opposite you'd want with considering it's carrying gasoline.
Right. And so that's why I'm questioning what they have here. Maybe somebody pressed the wrong button.
It could be a typo, I guess, but yes.
Yeah, Schedule 10 is I don't even know. If it's welded stainless, that may be okay, but I mean, you could blow your nose on it and blow a hole in it. I mean, it's
Right.
No, we don't want that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's obviously not what we want then, so I
Right.
hope it's a typo then, so, but yeah, we'll get that.
so. And when it comes time, we can all sit down, and I have a pretty good knowledge of a lot of this stuff.
Right,
And
that's what I found.
so it looks like on line 20, you have a 12,000 gallon tank with the card reader. And I
Mhm.
believe there was something further down in the document where you're getting charged for another card reader.
No, so the way you should see that is,
And I've just been viewing it as it's been flying by.
yeah, okay, so this is one proposal. So of course, if you go down the columns for this particular proposal, there would be nothing
Okay.
down here in the POS. But there would probably be in another one if we went for another tank that didn't come with the card reader in the
Mhm.
proposal. So I just,
Sure.
on the left-hand side, you see a column, so you can see the ones I put italicized.
Okay.
That's all stuff that depends on, is it a tank that requires piping? Is it a tank that is in a new location, so we need
Mhm.
electrical service or lighting and everything else, right? So that's those are, of course, the extra cost if we decide to move where the tank is.
Yeah. I mean,
And then we have the water well if the tank is going to be placed on top of that, right, or close to it, so.
right. And who knows what the, but if it's a double wall tank, you should have no problem. I mean, the tank, chances of it leaking are slim to none.
Right,
They
exactly.
take and have you put some type of extended berm up around that water well. If you came up 2 feet, would be more than enough where there'd be no way for water or fuel to leak into it. And I think that is a cement trough, that well.
Hmm.
You're probably going to need some engineering on that.
Right,
But yeah, that's what I have to report. I'm gonna tell him I'd call him within a week or 10 days and see
right,
that. But I'm guessing that tank about 25 grand for that 15,000 gallon tank.
right.
And you
How
know,
old is it?
it costs. So we'll have to wait.
Okay, all right,
I have some material I could show too on. It's kind of an
okay.
update.
Before I let you do that, Terry, let me just, so again, the other sheets
Oh.
I have, as you talked about, is what are the savings we're going to get with
Good.
removal of an underground storage tank as I need to fill out, and then what are some of the common replacement costs that are completely orthogonal to what kind of tank we choose, and then what are the operational expenses like insurance, permits, inspections, and so forth. So those are data that I'll be working on as part of the ad hoc committee then, and we're presenting in this meeting, of course. And to the board as they become available.
Has-
So with that, go ahead.
Has anybody looked into grants for removing underground tanks? Because at one time they were available. I don't know what's available now.
Yes,
Different entities, there may be some grants available to remove an underground tank.
when I looked at it, I think EPA or the California EPA had grants, but it was only for bankrupt entities that they would come in and help pay for get it removed, I guess.
Well, us being a government entity, there may be some money there. So I'll
Yeah,
talk.
I haven't found any, but it's certainly worth exploring.
Sure. Well, I'll talk to Rich about it. And if we can take and get a grant,
Yeah,
that doesn't
Yeah.
hurt my feelings at all.
That could be pretty important.
okay. I will add that to the study. All right, Terry, you wanted to share something?
Yeah.
I'll
Let's see,
stop here.
Do I have the ability? Oh, you've got to release it?
Do I need to give you permission to share?
Yes.
Hang on a second.
Just
There
has
you
some
go.
updates and just tries to explain it. Okay, where am I at? That should be it. Let me go to view. Whoops. Going the wrong way. This is just kind of some update. The titles are not quite right. But just some other information. First of all, let me go back here, actually. Let me stop sharing and go back to some of the other cost information. Oops, that may not show up here. Sorry about this. Let me go back on the screen here. Okay. This is kind of what I reported. I think we talked last November after I had the conversation with Mascot and a lot of email exchanges and information. And he did give a quote at that time for the fully integrated tank system, including the pumps, 12,000 gallon tank, it works out to about 10,400 gallons usable. At $156,500 now, and that included California sales tax. The point of sale was separate from that. So it's integrated system with everything but the point of sale, because you can put your choice of point of sale system on it. The shipping cost, which he came back, he contacted his shipper to ship it down to Cameron Park, was about $5,000. So I consider that kind of a high confidence estimate. All of these numbers here just say, even if they're high confidence, they need to be revalidated, new quotes and so forth. And the discussions with him and talked about what we want to do. You can see the engineering estimates, 5,000 concrete, crane services based on the cranes he used is 5,000, and that's to drop it off here. Electrical is just a wild guess at $1,000. That's to install it at the current location. We have to solder down the tie downs. As you point out, that estimate may be much higher. So based on what he said for a new system complete, I said about round numbers 157,000 with including the sales tax. The total new system with everything to put in there is roughly just under 200,000. Again, it has to be updated. I'm sure with inflation, it's going to drive it up closer to 200,000. Removal of the tank based on the CNS studies and the contingencies, I think that measures is about 105,000. But there's a lot of unknowns in here, and we know CNS just seems to be very high on things. Far right column, just my notes on what we need to do to develop more high fidelity costs for this. And this is all important, is how it feeds into obviously in our financials. So let me go back to my PowerPoint chart. Yeah, fuel system just is defined as everything here is the fuel, the tank, the dispenser, associated pumps, sensors, plumbing, alarms, and the point of sale system. It's important, I think, in terms of as we go forward, is to remember why we're doing this. I'm not going to go into the details here, but we've been talking about this for a long time. We are carrying a high risk with our current system, which could cost us a lot of money if the worst case happens. And that keeps increasing every day with age. This was, I think, I've showed this, I think you've seen this before. This is where kind of a cartoon of our current tank. In terms of risk assessment, I think, and this is where we're really worried about the things that would get us, is the outer tank here. Of course, it sees earth and water. If there's a leak that develops in there, sets our alarms sensor off, and we sump that and turns out to be water, that's a big problem, of course, because that means you got an external leak. That shuts us down, and probability of the consequence occurrence, most likely, I think, is you got to pull the tank out, assuming you're going to repair it, because it's external to the tank. The other high consequence area is if the inner tank leaks into the annular space. So we get an alarm and we sump that and it turns out there's fuel in there. That'd be a very bad day. Either one of these, we're shut down. Where we're having problems, I think as most people know, is these fiberglass extensions on top of this steel things. I'm not even sure what you call this, but we have 2 of them per tank, and they primarily house a pump, the pump turbines, and some other piping. We're getting leaks in this fiberglass. It's just aging, and that's water leaks into these spaces, sets off the alarm. And I know, Canoe, we've spent a lot of money trying to get those fixed, and it seems to be a growing problem.
Yes, we just got it fixed actually, so hopefully we are good until we can replace it, but you're right. I mean, the leak from the outside is a problem. So when it rains hard, the water levels in the surrounding get so high that the water runs into those spaces. And the problem we had for the inspection was that they fill it up with water, and actually there's leak outside too. So, yeah, but it's currently, we passed the test, so we are currently okay both with our insurance and for passing the county check.
But it's these tanks here, that's our greatest risk. So this just decaying, and then we develop leaks. And of course, the big cost is if we leak into the ground and the soil, I think you can imagine the cleanup cost that would be associated with that. Let's see. Just a top view of the kind of the basic highlight of the plumbing. We've all seen this. Just kind of for reference, this is our tank. And I understand this tank was already used when it went in the ground. It was refurbished, redone. So its true age is much beyond 30 years, but that doesn't seem to play into insurance considerations. And there's a tank installed. I was to approach this, as we fill out those columns that you had set up there, Canute, and in terms of our trade studies, we look at what our really requirements are, and then what I say desired attributes. What do we really want out of it that could carry different weights of importance? For example, it's got to be above ground. That's a given. It has to be above ground, of course. We really want to be a minimum of 12,000 gallons because of the benefits economically from the delivery, the fuel in 8,000 gallon increments, and giving us a margin. Significant delivery savings if we take 8,000 gallons at a time. Obviously, we got to meet requirements and at best value. This is not a complete list, nor intended to be permanent. This is kind of in work. I'm not going to run through all of this, but the basic message here is to try to understand what we're really looking for, because the end of the objective we're looking for is to make conscious decisions to what we're doing, and understand what we're not getting or getting with each of the systems. But the desired attributes, the financing that we can get with it, insurability, and so forth. This would be reviewed when talked about that when we get the ad hoc committee. Information needed, obviously we need to know, see what we can find out about used tanks within our given time frame, and of course about new tanks. Trade study process mentioned, we pull all the information together. Collect information, develop the estimated high fidelity estimated cost schedules and risk. Compare the reasonable candidate solutions. It's just process a little bit out of order to, develop the requirements, develop ranking criteria, kind of attributes and weighting. This can be on a chart format or at least just verbally, but the most important thing I'm looking for is we make conscious decisions. Financing, this is what I have a little more up on, a little bit more. We know we're gonna have to have some sort of financing to do with this. We don't have the reserves, of course, to fully fund the system with the numbers that were shown, so we're gonna need something. So Mascot Equipment turned me on to a financing company they use most of the time that have companies got a good reputation, and they've got others called KLSC Financial, and I think they're in Minnesota. They specialize in equipment financing.
What about the equivalent of what we did for the streets, the Department of Agriculture?
There's also that has not been looked into.
Okay.
Here's what I really want to. This is just the beginning to look into financing. This is not obviously the only one, but some interesting stuff came out of the discussion with KFC that can apply to some other commercial loans. And then we got the USDA type of loan we can look at. So there's a lot more work to be done here. But I was saying the commercial loans in the range of 6 to 8% rate, they start talking about, because we are a government agency, you kept referring to as a municipal loan, which may be possible at significantly reduced interest rates. It mentions kind of in a 1 to 2% range, maybe, but it almost sounds too good to be true kind of thing. However, it only would, he says, is very likely, using his words, only likely available for new equipment. And that's how they generally do it. And whatever approvals they would have to go then get. I did submit some initial information from that. That was yesterday. Now here's kind of the unexpected parts with this particular loan, whether it's commercial or municipal. The term of the loan, and I don't fully understand this, I'm not a finance person, don't play one on TV and all that, but the term is about 5 to 6 years with a balloon payment that may be re-amortized over for several more years. And it was kind of possibly 2, 3, maybe for a total of about 10. The way their loans work and equipment is they purchased equipment is the only collateral. They do not put liens on other parts of a business or property. So what that kind of means is likely with a commercial loan like this could only finance the new equipment, and for a relatively short 5 to 10 years. I was kind of, the initial assessment was assuming 20 years, like you buy an RV or something. So as a point of reference, if you can only do the new equipment, and assuming you can also finance the concrete, the engineering and stuff, that's a big if, because that was kind of the part of the discussion. For $200,000 at 5 years, talking about $3,500 per month that we would have to pay over 5 years to finance it. That says we may not be able to finance the 100 or so thousand, whatever the right number comes down out, to remove the existing tank. Obviously, in any case, as always, any of these things, the lower the amount, the better, of course. But that was something, to be honest, in my naivety, I wasn't quite expecting. I thought we could just finance the whole thing. Maybe that's possible, because we still got the USDA type of approach. Maybe Caltrans Aero could do it. This is just touching the beginning of this. But there's some other things in here, is that a significant part of the cost we're talking about here is not something of value that could be as collateral. And that could be a factor in the loans. Then, of course, we got to develop a schedule.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
What I also would like to add, I have one more thing I'd like to show related to this. Kind of the schedule. Whoops. Can you see anything on your screens?
That's the ballot measure schedule.
That's what I'm looking. That's because I added below it the field. Whoops. It went up, but I couldn't see it. Okay, where'd it go? That's not it. Do you see anything on the screen?
Yes, you're sharing what's called measure schedule for ballot in November 8th.
Oh, there it is.
2020.
Okay. Maybe back up to here. This is kind of the bigger picture of when we talk about the measure. I think, to get an idea of how do we get to proposed amount in a schedule, which fuel system plays for part of this. These, I think, are the major inputs into the infrastructure financing committee to turn and stuff and evaluate it, and then using the financial tools and then come out with a recommended amount for the measure. But how does that tie to the schedule? This has been shown before at the previous board meetings. But when you back off of here in order to make the November and our deadline submittal days and so forth, our board meeting in March, the way I read this, you want to check with you, Canoe. This is when the board really has to come in and make the final, or do we have to make the final decision on the amount of the measure?
No, but you have to announce it, I guess.
That later on, does it? Is it? And
Yeah.
I'm talking, got myself confused. Was really what I'm trying to do is
Okay,
back
yeah,
off.
I'm not, we probably should check with Dave, but I'm
they're
not
trying to
sure
back
the
off.
amount doesn't have to be finalized until later in that schedule, but you
Oh,
have to
that's-
announce the intent of approving it.
Okay, so it really goes out to, I think the way I remember doing this is in the May timeframe. Yeah, adopt.
Of course, by the time you submit it to the county, you have to have the final wording of it,
Right.
which has to be by.
Well, okay, it's not as
July.
bad as I thought, because I was trying to say how much, we look at the fuel system in terms of including that cost in the, potential bond measure. When do we need to have that information, at least a good high confidence numbers that get included there.
Mhm.
And it looks like May, it looks like it has to come together.
Yeah, hopefully sooner than that even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sooner.
I'm hoping that if we can get this ad hoc working right, that we can move pretty fast in collecting the data, which is pretty much all we can do, right?
Right.
And put that together to different proposals. So, that's at least my hope. So,
Because I think then, the idea of, I don't, talk for later on is when, what's the criteria for pulling the trigger to actually go do this project? I don't think that's for, after November, because I think it's clear we're going to need the money from the ballot measure, the certainty of that in order to obtain the financing and to commit to the project.
Well, I think we need to be able to say if we can pull the trigger on one of these projects, whether or not we get any funding for it. Right?
That would be, that would be ideal.
Because reality may force our hand, right? If the fuel system doesn't survive the rest of the year.
What's that?
I guess reality may force our hand if the system doesn't survive another year.
That's
Right?
yes, that's. But I think that's a coming discussion is we'll wrap up the cost of this, take it to our current finances. But the way I see it, looking at financial models, it's a difficult path to do any of this without raising more money. But that amount is still a little bit TBD, but we'll see. So that's what I have on the. Can I stop sharing?
Okay.
And the fuel system.
Thank you, Terry, for that. So we'll continue the detailed research on this and get real numbers. Phil has made a lot of suggestions too, but we don't have any actual numbers on this yet. And so I think with a use tank, we need to have some line items that talk about what will it cost to restore them to 100 low lead or UL, whatever it's going to be, and depending on what were in the tanks before. So I think the outcome of this is that Terry, you, Phil, if you're willing, and
Sure.
myself, and Dominique, I hope you would be part of an ad hoc to help collect data too. So we will start that committee for
We
working
can,
the details of the fuel system. Sorry.
they say I can write up a kind of a thing for our, send it out on our CPAD email.
Okay, sounds good.
Now, Hunt Brothers has an option for financing too. I believe they have a company that finances also. So
Okay.
I'll get with Rich and talk to
Okay.
him.
Hey, Knut?
Yeah.
I got a comment on the fuel if you're getting ready to slip off that subject. I know you guys been doing a lot on it the last few years, trying to figure out what to do and worrying about it and all of that. But I'm thinking one firm thing we could do, and I've been around POL most of my working life, but that's been a couple days ago, is to get somebody's design, like Calaveras put a tank in, I think within the last 5 years, get a design for their containment area under the tank, which is required by California in any state. Get a copy of their design if you can for no cost, and find a firm location to put this tank, because if we ever replace this tank, it's going to be in above ground, so you're going to have to find a place to do it, and even start a permit process, which is going to maybe cost the cost of a permit or something like that. Even if, we don't have a date to put it in, we don't have financing or anything else. If we've got a firm location and a firm plan that doesn't cost any money, then when we do get money and a decent cost estimate that we can afford, the hard work, a lot of the hard work is done, because location and permit and design for the containment area is very important. And the installation of the tank itself, and worried about Schedule 10 or Schedule 40 or 80, those are all good things, and keypads and all of this, but all part of the system. That's going to come when the money comes. But the design and the improvement, the location, I think is the key thing.
Yeah, actually, Don, I think that's an excellent suggestion. It's a little bit, in some ways, easier than what you just mentioned, because with these above ground tanks, with the proximity to the dispenser, the tanks have to be double walled, meet requirements. They don't, for the tank itself, they don't require a containment system. If it's on a skid, you can just pick it up and move it. I mean, obviously the permits. There was a requirement for the tank that's going to put gas into the delivery truck to have a type of containment system. But going to Lincoln and stuff, they don't seem to have any containment system for those, as we don't have a containment system currently for ours.
Well, you will certainly need the
I hear you.
foundation, right? And
You need the foundation, you need the footings, and that's where the
I hear you. But even if you don't have anything called a containment area, whatever they do in California, like say Calaveras, Lincoln, wherever else this tank's been put in, whatever kind of a system they need, it requires boundaries and locations that have to be approved, and a design, and that's the part, whatever it is, whether you want to call it a containment area or a foundation or whatever it is, that can be done for almost nothing, because you can get somebody else's plan, and then you just have to lay out a site and say, hey, government agency, can you approve this here, and put a permit in to do it and put a date on it. And obviously it's pending finance. We might have to keep delaying the date, but.
Well, in fact, that's a very good suggestion, I think, Don, and we do for Mascot Engineering. They send foundation drawings that they've used in other projects in California. So we're more than halfway there.
Well, we've also done the location study, right? And we pretty much have only, at least on airport property, 2 locations that would work. All right, thank you, Don. Yeah, I think getting the Calaveras and
the big thing about
go ahead.
The big thing about the location is just to make sure they're going to be approvable, and the only way to do that, I think, is probably to put a permit in, which we can't go broke on putting a permit in, and getting it approved or yay or nay.
Yeah. Well, we know what the setback requirements are and what the, so for example, hoses where they can reach and so forth. So I think we pretty much got it narrowed down where the location is. Of course, we don't have the permit and what will the county take as a, but let's look into that too. So, all right, thank you. And yeah, I have been thinking about flying down to Calaveras and getting and see what we could find out. So we'll try to get that. That's a good point. Thank you. All right, so we will move ahead with the fuel system details, the people we talked about. So let's go on to new business. For the infrastructure and I'll just make a recommendation. I just want to check here if it's something we should propose to the board that over the last 2 years, we have received, applied for and received $75,000 in grant from FAA. And a lot of that was used, the first 30,000 was pretty much used for the obstruction mitigation to get night operation back. And I think we need to put more money aside for additional, we still have a number of trees on Boeing and up on the South Hill that they have asked that we get removed, so, or at least cut down. So we need to have money for that. And then also for the fuel system. So of the money we received in grants, I would recommend that we put aside probably about 20,000 in addition to the reserve fund for the airport for the fuel system and obstruction mitigation. So I'll just like to make that proposal for the board, and I just want to, any comment here in the I&F committee.
We move that money, not seeing the numbers, could anybody certainly agree we should take the funds that we don't need to have readily available, put in the reserve. So it helps track those.
Yeah.
Gets them to the next level in case we do need them, say for the airport and obstruction, for the tank and obstruction, we can, that's the place to go to get it. How, if we move the 20,000 into it, how does that do on our other accounts?
Well, the intent is, of course, that we can meet the budget that we've made, right? And I think we can do a half-year review at the board, and I can prepare that for the next board meeting, how we look at the budget so far for this year, right? And of course, we got to be able to make sure that we can stay within our budget and still put something in the reserve, given the grants that we got for that. So I think thanks to those grants, right, we can have a little for the either matching grants or for starting the funding of the fuel system replacement. So,
I think we talked for the fuel system, there will be some startup costs and maybe the permits, maybe some engineering, some initial stuff to get to.
So maybe what we should do is for the board meeting is I recommend that we maybe do a little more detailed review of the actual versus the budget for 21, 22, and then make a recommendation about setting aside money for these projects here. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll make that suggestion at the next board meeting, or if we can get that on the agenda. So, we can decide on the actual amount once we have the detailed review of the budget versus actual at midpoint here. So
sounds good.
Next one. So Terry, I don't know, do you still plan on a public meeting on February 7th?
I don't think we're going to make the 7th at this.
Okay.
This point, I may need to I mean, I can keep that TBD, but I do want to have that within the next 2 weeks.
You mentioned that you would like to review I know that Diane has been doing a lot, and of course she can't really speak in this meeting here, but did you want to have a review of your presentation before public presentation?
I would. Here's Diane puts together some draft charts, and they're really good. I mean, she's done excellent. I'm not sure if we're ready to present. Well, I'll tell you what, we could present those and show what she's put together with the idea. We got to just keep referring. I haven't really done anything with him, but she's done a great job. So
it's kind of sad that she can't present them. I don't know if it should be done at the board meeting instead, maybe. So she got.
Perhaps, or I could turn on and I don't know if we can switch people here if I can step out of the room.
Uh,
I don't know if the legalities.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we can do that, but that was,
But let me,
maybe we find out what the best, but of course you can share if you will, but
right, I'm going to pull it up here.
okay, I'm going to stop sharing so you can.
Okay, I apologize. I got to get back to the charts, which I accidentally closed hers. I had them up here. The system charts. Oh,
I assume you planned on showing your financial model too, right? What the
right.
what if analysis that you can do with that.
That's right. I think what the objective of the meeting, and I apologize, I gotta get back to find those charts. The objective of the meeting was to give public the information to the public and can have a discussion, you know, about where we are financially, looking at the model. No absolute answers or anything like that with it, which is it's just too early. But start to get the information out there and have the opportunity so we can get some feedback. And I apologize, I'm still looking for that for the charts. But that, here I go. So that was the idea, is just start that, is kind of what we did at the board meeting in November, is start to show the kind of the process, at least a range of things we're taking a look at. And it becomes more detailed. So it's an information meeting, not information looking for feedback meeting.
Are you sharing something now?
We're presenting what we're planning to do in the measure in detail. Okay, so I've got the charts up. Let me go ahead and share. Again, this is Diane's. I have not done anything to them, but just tend to give their committee here a flavor of the type of presentation. Because what I'd like to do is, she's much better at it than I think I am, and then have the discussion. So to start out with just a general information, I think one of the things we want to emphasize throughout this is, well, one of the several things we really want to emphasize is CPAD is the government for the airport here. There's no background bureaucracy. You know, we get money. It's very visible and transparent. People just need to attend meetings, look up the material, and give input to how they think the board, should proceed at the board meetings. That's got to always continue. This is not a state government where you vote for a tax increase or something that goes into some bureaucracy and you never know what happens. We got 5 volunteer people on the board, and it's a pretty thin in order. It's very easy to see what goes on. But anyways, a little bit about our district. This also brings a good point. Roads, I've not been focusing on roads. It's been in the airport, particularly with the fuel. This is not at the meeting, but the sides, we got a whole road issue with the big dollars in there we got to do. And I just have not thought about that very much, to be honest. But just saying we got to take action now to, particularly, for the airport, because as we talked about before, our $25 was first came in 1995. It's only worth about half of what it used to be. We do not have money. Anyways, I'm going to read the charts here, but this the message is trying to get across. Challenges, opportunities, but you see the type of graphics and messaging she's been worked on to make it easier to understand and hopefully sink in, for public presentations. These are the tiers we talked about before at the November meeting, which is intended to make visible where the new money is going, not only to where we are financially, but where new money would go and how it would be tracked. Our current situation, basically we have no reserve, no significant reserve income sources, but you see, you see the type of format. I think it looks really good. This is I think it's going to go across very well. It looks good. It's attractive, and I think will give the messaging. So there's some information to continue putting in here. So I've got to work with Diane, but this is essentially what we plan to do. Now a little bit on the schedule. Yeah, and this is all just supplement. This is primarily, coming from the financial models.
Okay.
But I really want to thank Diane for pulling this together, and I look forward to continue to work on it and make it a real meaningful package. As I also anticipate as we go through the public meetings, this will be updated as we get more information.
I mean, it looks really good. I mean, we need the input from the residents, what they will approve and what tier they want to operate the airport at, right? And so I guess the next thing, how would you get the word out about having a public meeting and doing the presentation there, which probably got to happen before the next board meeting.
Yeah, it has to happen before the next board meeting. I need to coordinate with Diane.
Okay.
When we can go together, and then we'll get out the notices.
One thing you may want to do is call a special board meeting so that way all the board members can attend and be messing around with the Brown Act.
Yeah,
That you want all the board members there for the presentation.
that's actually a pretty good idea. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good quite idea. That's all I had on that.
All right. Well, I would like to thank Diane too. That looks really a nice, understandable presentation. So I think the special board meeting is a good idea where she can actually present. So let's look into that. All right. Thank you, Terry. And the next thing was the last agenda item is we've had Jeff look into the current lease contract for the airport. Let me see if I can find that. Just a second.
And then I need to step out just for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay. Just a moment, I should have it here. There we go. So this was actually presented in the last board meeting on of January, but what we need to do as a next step, and that's where I think we need an ad hoc committee that can come up with a proposal to present to the board about where we go with the leases. And you can, this kind of gives you an idea of what we currently charge for the different hangar and the big difference we have in some of the payments for those hangars. So I think a committee needs to work out those details and do the comparison to the local airports that we can kind of compare ourselves to, which is what Jeff looked into as well. Another thing that played into this, and this is where I kind of got to recuse myself, but one of the flight school had a proposal for a different lease agreement, which I need Terry to discuss that on that behalf, but that needs probably to be included in a proposal to the board. So now Terry left, but I would kind of like to propose that maybe Diane and Terry maybe work on an updated lease proposal for the airport hangars. So I don't know if you guys see your back, Terry, if you would be willing to do that or part of that. So
that was going to be my proposal. They could form the ad hoc committee to actually, I think we've got two parts here. One is how we handle foothills.
Right.
And because it's a commercial operating and so forth. And then the other leases. I mean, I had to look at the big picture here. That's how we started out. but
Right.
we need the common language. And I think forming that ad hoc committee, and if Diana's able to do that, I know she can't respond here. That would be great. And then we could see if we get some review assistance from our council.
I think,
Along
as
with
we,
Dominic, I'd like him to be part of it too.
okay. What we talked about, or at least mentioned, is that there could potentially be leases at different levels with different kind of protections or times for the lease. Right, that you could have different prices for that potentially.
Yes.
But just as looking at the finances, often this is actually our number one income source is the hangars. We make 50K on that, and that dwarfs anything else we make from fuel or from property special taxes on the airport.
Yeah, I think Jeff put together some good information, and I think with the ad hoc committee, we can sit around the table and hammer out stuff.
Yep.
And then one of the first things like to come out of that is getting back to foothills, which require board approval.
Right. And yeah, that's the one I can't participate in, but yeah, it should definitely be part of any proposal to the board that's being made. So it looks like the prices are all over the place, kind of from 24 cents per square foot up to 46 here in our current setup. So.
Yeah, because I proposed to talk about in the ad hoc committee is a suggestion is to kind of have a base kind of rate per square foot. Just kind of start out and then adjust it. At least internally is to if there are different protections, as you say, different terms of leases.
Right.
And of course, adjustments if we're storing stuff in somebody's hangar.
And we have two hangars that have office cutouts, right? There's hangar 1 and hangar 4.
Yeah,
and how should that affect the price, right?
Yeah, and that's those square footage is listed already. I don't know if those include. I don't know if Dominic has any idea what we can talk about later too. If the square footage is there include or not.
It does not, because if you look at H2 and H3, right, those don't have office cutout. So those are 1,353, and H1 and H4 are the ones that have the office cutout for the hangar there. So how should that affect it? And then the other thing we need to standardize, I think, is what are the write-offs that we provide for leases based upon storage of the district, right? So currently H5 and H hangar, I think it's hangar 1 and hangar 5 are the two that we have district stuff stored in. So.
That is correct.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I say like establish the kind of a base overall rate, and see how that works, and then make the adjustments. From there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the correction here is that hangar 1 actually has quite a bit of district stuff. That's the only place we can keep the sump pipes for the tanks, and also there's a lot of old stuff that I think potentially we need to dispose of. It's old stuff for repairing cracks in the runway, so I think that's probably not very useful material anymore, but we'll need to clean that up as well. So. All right, so Terry, maybe if I could have you contact Diane and ask her if you'll join a committee for coming up with a proposal for this. I would like to propose that, and Dominique be part of it as well.
I'll do that.
Sounds good. Any of the public have any comments on leases or any other subject we've discussed today?
Well, I just mentioned something on it. I'm just fill you in so you know, not that you guys need to know where I'm at, but I'm down in Marietta, Georgia, Florida right now. I'm at an airport and doing some flight training down there. But the training we have, any considerations? Obviously, training businesses have to pay for themselves too, but they do bring in other revenue, and they are a positive thing around the airport, both the training schools we have there at Cameron Park, so.
Yeah, Don,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely agree. I just said what's unique about the foothills is that it was presented, I talked about it in the November meeting, but basically what they're proposing is to increase their rent.
okay,
Yeah,
well,
There's some-
that
They want
sounds
some
good.
additional guarantee times, and they still want some additional times or guarantees and stuff, but yes, they do provide their income, and they also are offering to increase the rent, retroactively.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think I did hear that, but yeah, I mean, there's also, there's also Dustin's operation there too, and I don't know exactly what he's doing, but anyway, we want to try to encourage aviation businesses for sure.
Yep. We actually have
Maybe we
3
can-
flight schools at Cameron Park Airport right now. So
Oh, okay.
if you look at the
That's
whole
good.
county, we are doing really well. I think it's, but, and I think Foothill has also been generous in donating computer equipment for the
Yes.
office. So we're very grateful for that. So.
Yeah. It's good.
All right, unless there are other comments, thank you, Don, for that. And I would like to adjourn the meeting here at 5:12 and encourage the ad hoc committees to move fast because we don't need the overhead of the 3-day notice for meetings. And of course, the committees go away as soon as they're done with their tasks. So,
Yeah, we could even have an ad hoc committee and go have a beer afterwards.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, and thanks for participating. And I'll adjourn here at 5:12 now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, you're
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Phil.